First, it was his first demo, first album, second, third, fourth, fifth, well, EP, first EP, then fifth, then kind of sort of sixth, but really it's another EP. So sixth or seventh, eighth, really eighth, B-side, so I don't know if you really call it ninth. And now here we are. Here we are. So let's get right to it. Idle Hands, Ian Fisher.
Idle hands.
He says it better, sings it better than myself, but and kind of an autograph. But anyway, this is as you've seen in my opening. This is kind of his 9th, 10th, and it's been 10 years since he's released actual legit studio efforts since that of the Invasions record. And heck, if you want a better idea of his full discography, as well as a review for his last album, Nero. Not Kofor. Kofor was more of a B-sides rarities of what was kind of sort of left over from that of Nero, so that kind of don't count. So anyway, here we go. As we know, this one, compared to, usually he's more known as a rock, more of a sort of indie folk, alternative country, Americana type artist. So he's somewhat in the field of rock, but primarily folk and country. Primarily. May have some, but more under the indie credits of anything. So, as you've kind of heard here, he is a local artist, and this is probably one of his more, I would say it's definitely one of his pretty solid records. Though I wouldn't show it to my mother, she hates snakes. But it's whatever. And of course the album having started out with Tables Turn, kind of dealing with how, well, if you all know what the phrase is, then you understand. I'm not sure I can really detail that properly. Though it does seem to be one of his more relationship songs, but not. But it seems he's matured in how to handle those better compared to his past records. And this is definitely seems to have, for the album as a whole, comes off, to me, is definitely where his indie influences and some of his more 60s rock and 60s rock influences, garage rock, as well as the more, not in the exact sense of, say, not exactly in the lo-fi indie rock kind of way that he had done with Stained Glass necessarily, which sonically to me is still one of my favorites of his. But I've learned to, as I've matured my palate, I've learned to respect some of his earlier as well as his later works. And this is no exception to that rule. And it's, at first I wasn't sure with the way it was going, but it took having seen the rest of the live show that Friday a couple weeks ago when I got this album, which hasn't been out yet. So this is kind of an exclusive review here before it's even fully released or considered released, which should be in sometime in September. Maybe a month from now at the point of this review, or the time of when I got this, which was literally over a couple weeks ago from this coming Friday, I think. Yeah, we'll go with that. As far as I'm concerned, there's been a lot of, definitely some experimental stuff, but most in that sort of, I feel like some of his ideas that he was trying to do with a lot of this stuff is somewhat reminiscent to some of the ideas he sort of did within Invasions, Beyond Your White Moon, and more so, because the last album was definitely more closer to a more traditional kind of country record. That kind of old, and this record seems to not so much leave off from that, but it kind of seems like he's bringing in some of what he had done within Invasions and stuff, sound-wise, but while also doing some other newer things, possibly from other influences from other artists, whether possibly Sturgill Simpson, if I'm gonna be comparative into newer artists to a small degree. I doubt it, but maybe some Sturgill Simpson, because he is sort of has a 70s, 60s country vibe, because I do get some of that here. But I definitely know his influences towards Beatles, especially if you're talking about Sgt. Pepper's and Lonely Hearts Club Band, or yet alone maybe Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Definitely does. Those kinds of influences somewhat seep in here, though I feel it's more comes off to me more like a Father John Misty having produced for Danger Mouse, almost a la in the ways he kind of sort of did for Black Keys, which can be a good or a bad thing depending on what you think of the Black Keys at this point. Not too many people think fondly, as long as it's not the last album. Turn Blue. On that album, but that's not what happens here. And in fact, I would say he definitely seems to there is definitely a lot of those kind of vibes in terms of like that retro kind of country, pop, and even rock sounds a lot more, but yet simultaneously still having some of his modern, or at least 2000s era indie rock influences, as well as his influences in indie folk and country, alternative country throughout, from that of the 90s or even that of the 2000s itself, and maybe even current. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a grower for some people, and I think some people, and some lyrical content does get a little ridiculous, little oxymoronic. I don't know if that was his intention or not, or at least he was trying to come off clever, and maybe it doesn't always land. For Idle Hands, of course, the title track here, with which, of course, dealing with the whole concept or the phrase of which is idle hands are the devil's playground. Though it probably handles it better than that dang movie in the 90s that nobody bothers to talk about. Kind of don't blame them, I guess. Idle hands doing the and twiddling my thumbs thinking of doing wrong. Idle hands gonna keep me clean, gonna wash me of my sins with new sins. I mean, he's had worse on this in later tracks here. But of course, Icarus kind of does. A lot of it's very keyboard centric, which it seems Ryan Thomas Carpenter seems to be bringing the keys on this record, and for the most part, it does work. Though there are times where he seems to kind of go into weirder territory. Not that Ian hasn't done that before, and of course, having influences in artists like Radiohead, even Wilco for that matter, does kind of play a part in that. And it's not that they haven't done that before, especially if you count a live version of this one song that's never been put onto CD, and that's called A Loaf We Eat. But it was kind of a duel between that and From Nothing to Dust, which is renamed to something else. But regardless, as far as this album is concerned, the album having been recorded in a studio in Berlin, Germany, though mixed around somewhere around closer here in the States to within St. Louis area, though I'm not entirely sure in detail of where Jetson Studios is in terms of the mastering of this record. So, I mean, I don't know why I don't know who screwed up on that when doing these album creds, but yeah. But overall, I mean, Icarus is definitely tables turn, despite maybe not entirely one of my favorite tracks, but it is even for some of its repetitiveness, it finds a way to still be earwormingly catchy with songs like with especially when having repeated how the tables turn, the way Ian does it and is executed pretty well, so it works for what it is. Sorry, someone was staring at me, not realizing I'm doing this. But anyway, so Icarus is a pretty good one. Even some things, lines like even till you hit the ground, now get lost because that's the only way you get found. Stuff. Some kind of a sort of love song in a way, but the Bed Downtown, and even some form of certain songs on here does deal with, I guess, the whole aspect of how misogyny and how, or at least the whole sex sells thing, and I guess Bed Downtown being more of like it's more like it in the tracks If I Could Buy You or something, which sounds misogynistic, but it's more the fact of him not saying how we unintentionally, sometimes as men, how we can unintentionally come off as such, but that's because of how we were raised through society, the way society is, especially here in the stateside when it comes to that kind of thing. Even though it seems like the Me Too movement's trying to crack down on that, but I'm kind of iffy on that, and that actually being the case. I Could Do Wrong is fine. Bed Downtown starts off pretty interestingly. It's kind of has a really super lo-fi opening, and then before it builds up and actually the production pops out a little more, which was a cool, nice thing. I don't know who mixed it. I don't know about when it came to who mixed it, but Ben. I'm not gonna even pronounce your last name, man, because I'll probably butcher it. It pretty well mixed that part pretty good. I'll give you that, man. Though I will say some moments like there are moments where he does get a little more closer to that country kind of thing that I did like out of Nero, which I kind of somewhat like better. At least the way they chose to end the album, or at least the very tail end, was good. But as the song as a whole, I would have compared to the choice for Nero, which was much deeper and much more thought-provoking, which was called Just Like a Stranger. Though it seems that Long Line kind of does delve into that a little bit, and a lot of the songs here were kind of inspired with St. Genevieve, and I feel like the lead-up single, which is still a good, solid song, though it took a while for me to warm up, as some of these other songs that he had released, at least prior to that song, kind of had to, which was, of course, the first two songs on this album, well, being Tables Turn and Idle Hands. Downtown dealing with things about, having the moments of certain lines like I woke up in a bed, two girls stretched out before my eyes. It's in my head, well, I'm in my head, but I'm doing all right. Never thought I could be an evil man. It took 27 years for me to understand, and that everyone's got a good side, everyone's got a dark side. And the whole, we can lie and say it never happened. We can lie and say it never happened, but lying wouldn't make it right. I mean, it's the way he builds up with that track is interesting. And the live version that he did to promote the single, I somewhat like better. But, I mean, the way it's done on the album is pretty good for what it is. I Could Do Wrong, I feel like his vocals are auto-tuned, and I don't understand why. I mean, unless it's just a dual thing between him and the backing vocals that Ryan Carpenter gives off, but as maybe there's something in that way it's mixed. I'm not sure about that, but now, the Long Line is probably one of my favorites, and it's definitely one of the more country-ish songs on here. That old school kind of feel, especially in that more George Jonesy kind of way, or at least the kind of way that required having string sections during that certain period in the 70s. If not the 60s, when it comes to that era, I do draw a blank when it comes to country anyway. Of course, I'm more of a rocker, so. And Tears and Dust definitely was kind of classic-y and folk style, you know. And it worked, which almost is somewhat the way he ends this album. It's actually reminiscent to another artist that I talked about, Gary Clark Jr. By the way, if you want to know more on my thoughts, like I said earlier, just to double check if I hadn't, Nero and the Ian Fisher discography of all the albums prior that I showed you in the beginning of this video, go to the link for my Facebook page and just scroll down and check it out there. If you want to have more of an idea of Ian Fisher's stuff. Though, good luck finding most of these albums anyway. You're more likely to have a better shot of finding them at a show, or just hoping that you find someone who is a fan like myself and who still has these albums somewhere, and that shows up at any of the shows that he's done around any of those areas. Or hopefully someone from Berlin, if you know them, he'll give you an album or something. Who knows? Was with that, but Road to Jordan, I feel like there was a song on here I heard that was about a certain someone that is within the band that I'm not going to name, even though I already kind of name dropped him. Mother or something. I think from what I had heard during the show that he came, the local show. And, and I think it's kind of in the Road to Jordan, if I'm, or at least a certain verse in here kind of references her. Which I'm guessing is where, when I came back, which I guess is, I don't know if this deals with something that happened in a car wreck or something, and had maybe had a moment of a near-death experience, which I thought this was sort of a love song, but I didn't until I'm here reading these lyrics, and then that issue. I'm wondering if that's what that's about. I could be wrong on that. Ian, if you're watching this, let me know, dude. But I think there are certain lines when it got to the second verse of "When I came back to, I could not believe my eyes, lying on the road, and you were stretched out there bedside, feeling half dead, feeling good enough to be alive, checking your pulse, hoping that you would be alright. Opened your eyes and took a long old look at me, saw in me something that I guess I had failed to see." Or something in there. I'm not sure if I'm overreaching about that, but just let me know with that, dude. Or if that has something to do with what I think it is. But though some songs I think deal with how he is with his times on the road, which Like a Stranger does do, and Long Line is another track that does that, and it does have a similar feel to some of the stuff he's kind of done with Nero, but while somewhat maintaining what's happening already throughout the record, it's still somewhat fitting. Though I do feel like, I wonder if he has listened to any of the Danger Mouse era Black Keys stuff, and a little bit, or maybe saw their John Misty, or even some Sturgill Simpson, because some of that does seem to kind of be in here, I guess. Though I know more on the Black Keys thing than I do the Father John Misty and the Sturgill Simpson, so I can't say much on that. But it's still one of those songs I do come back to a lot, want to come back to a lot. Tables Turn finds a way to have a nice, that has its one little earwormy sort of chorus, whatever you'd consider that to be. Idle Hands kind of has those moments. Road to Jordan is probably one of his more better vocal performances on this record. Though I will say there were moments like with I Could Buy You, and even the Long Line, where the keyboard thing does get a little overboard and overbearing it a little bit, or at least the do thing, the thing he's doing that comes off like police sirens in that one. Even the catchiness of "Who owns you?" Who? I'm not even saying it right, but whatever. But overall, I do enjoy this album. I can't say I enjoy this album nearly as much But hopefully, I will probably try to leave when he does finally have an album out, eventually at some point. I will leave, hopefully, in either in the comment section or in the description below. I will, leave something. You know what? I'll just leave his actual website. Not so much the albums. Yeah, unless he does have something on the Bandcamp site. But if not, I'll just leave his online thing in the description below where you can hopefully maybe purchase it or find a way to check it out some way or something. Then, and yeah, check it out hopefully when it finally gets released sometime in September. And yeah, overall, the best thing I could say is thumbs up, Ian. I can't say I fully enjoy this record nearly as much, but I do feel like coming back to it, it's a good release, and I'd say, yeah, you've said that you're very proud of this album, and of course, if you weren't, like most of your other records, you wouldn't have put it out anyway. So, and I hope things go well for you right now with this album, given your recent first stint of having gotten on a cover for Rolling Stone, which is pretty cool, I'd say, even though even despite being the world of the online world, it seems irrelevant-ish, but still cool regardless. But anyways, for those of you, by the time you probably see this, or by the time it finally comes out, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this album. Once again, hopefully by the description or somewhere in the comment section below, I will probably leave a link to his site to, allow you the chance to check out the album or pre-order it if you need to when you get the chance. And yeah, or maybe the Bandcamp site, who knows if there is one for it, I don't remember. But yeah, like I said, it's done. Like I said, thumbs up. What did you guys think of this one? And oh yeah, and this is the autograph I got from him. Though I probably should have just told him to put it on the cover, but I just didn't want to take up too much of his time, because by the time I had asked for it, he was kind of about to go do an interview, so I didn't want to pry or nothing. So anyway, what will you guys think, or what do you have thought, or so on and so forth for this Ian Fisher's album? Leave a comment below, let me know. And as always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I will see you in the next video, which will probably be the new Alice in Chains, more than likely, this coming Monday or so, sometime around there in the week. And maybe a movie, we'll see. And yeah, take care, y'all.